Alright, so what I noticed here is I just took out the seals, which I'm sure you guys know how to take those out. So if you guys seen that seal there, it's in the other side here. This is where there's a little ridge in here that hits the seal bottoms out against. And that's what, you know, you can maybe see it like that, is what I'm thinking may be a problem, because I can see this here is right around that same point where I want to put the factory one back. So maybe I'll have to get them to mill this just a little bit on this side and do my weld prep up. It'll just mean a bigger cap when I do weld it, because I'll clean this right up in the sandblaster and that. Alright, thank you very much. So hopefully if you guys want to try it, go nuts. Like I said, to me, it's this differential cost me $50, so you know, I haven't bought axles yet or anything like that, but if I can get it nice and true, then I will. So I'm just trimming this crooked cut from the axle end, and so this is after sandblasting. So this I thought was a weld, like the original weld, but if you look at it, it actually just looks like a, I don't even know, like just a forge line or a mill line, like a rough casting line. It doesn't seem to be welded on. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm just trimming this up just inside this end. You can see this little bit of meat I'm leaving here, and I'm leaving that so that I can square it up. So what I'm going to do is take a square here and then run a square across the face and hopefully get it. I was hoping to get this done on a lathe, but that wasn't the case for me. So just to show you, I'm just cutting this, just using a simple cutting wheel, just a thin little cutting wheel, and I'm just going right around to square this up. And then I'll do the same on the axle housing. I'll use the pipe cutter, but I'm going to try to make it really square. And I guess, like I said, I thought initially when I cut it, it was pushed off square because of that bevel. So I'm gonna, when I cut it again, which will be somewhere back here, I'll square it up good, and if it ends up crooked, I'll just take my time and mill it square with the grinder. So just to show you, after going around, these ends are ready to meet. Obviously this one's a little more crooked, but I'm gonna, you know, try to straighten out, and then I'll show the 2 square method that I was using to square this cut. Alright, so here we have what I was using just to line up. So you can see here I line it up against the wall. I'm going to take this other square and just run it across the top. Alright, it's hard to do with film. And then just run this so it's square there, and then when you look down in here, alright, hard to see there, try my best. And that's all I'm doing. I'll do that 3 or 4 times around and try to get it good. It's still got a little bit of waves, you know, but I'm just going to take a flapper wheel and just square this up, and then I'm going to take a mini belt sander and just use see, I use this guy for the inside and just deburr all that junk out of there, and also give it a slight chamfer. So here's kind of the finished edge. For the most part, I'm pretty happy with it. It's square, definitely square enough. I'm sure there's some spots that are not perfect, but by the time you put the filler in and square it up with the jig, I think it'll be a great product. Just to show you, there's a little detail in here. I don't know if you can see it. Try to see. There's a little lip right here. That's where the seal sits on the inside. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted initially to cut it off right here and make that weld the same, make it look the same. But because of that, I didn't. I cut it back here, and if I have to make a fatter looking cap, then so be it. So here's the final measurement after being ground down. It's 2 and basically 11/16. Don't know if you can see it. I checked the other one, it's the same, within probably a 30-second or so. So I'm just going to use that measurement. So this measurement times 2, and then I'll cut the housing down so that it equals what I want it to be in the end. So I'll show you that here shortly. Okay, so looking on the internet, which is great for everybody, we all do it, Factory A body 8 3/4 drum to drum is 57 1/8 inches, and the housing without the drums and breaking backing plates and that is 52 5/8. So what I'm doing is just minusing everything. So the two axle ends that I cut and measured down are 2 11/16 times 2, right? So did the fraction times 2, 5 3/8. This is what the housing without the axle ends would have to be in order to equal a factory length A-body differential for this situation. Obviously everybody's a little bit different. It depends how much cutting you take off. So then what I did was I took my measurement. If you look here, I took my measurement from end to end, and then I minused it and I checked to make sure I wasn't off center. This would be where I'd have to cut, and there's a mark on the other side as well, in order to weld the axle end back on and equal a factory A-body 8 3/4. This is where I intend to cut it, both sides. I'm going to end up narrowing about 3 inches off this differential from a factory A-body. This is around 1.5 inches. I don't remember this exact measurement right now, but so then what I did was what I wanted to do was all this erosion that's here from the old spring perch that had mud and whatever else in it. I want to cut that off as much as I can. So that's kind of what told me I want to go to 3 inches. Everybody's a little bit different. I also want to try not to get a crazy backspacing rim on the car. So on this side here, you can see the erosion is a whole lot worse. So I want to keep it equal. So then what I did was I took my measurement from this stud back to make sure it's equal on both ends, so that this measurement is where I want to be. And it's not like I've ordered the axles yet. So as long as I make this equal on both lengths, I'll be all right, because I just got to order the axles that long. Pardon me, and we'll get to that, how I'm going to do it, and I'm sure it'll work fine. So yeah, there you go. So I'm going to set up. I'm going to try to make this cut square with the pipe cutter, and I'll show you guys that again, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the pipe clamp on. I have it on my mark, which maybe you can see, maybe you can't. And I will make sure before it's done. So now I'm just squaring up to the housing and up to the cutter. I checked a couple spots. So this is what I'm going to try. I don't know if it's going to work. Like I said, this is my first differential narrowing. So there we can go. There's no gap in there. This is a milled face at least. We'll give it a shot. If it's not square, like I said, I'll just I'll buff it off with the flapper wheel to get it square. And as long as I get, like I said before, both ends equal, then it shouldn't affect anything to do with this differential. I may be a little bit shorter than I wanted by 1/8 of an inch or something, but for the most part, I'll be done. All right, we're gonna give it a shot. I got it clamped back down. I got it squared up, what I believe to be square, and we'll see how she goes. I'm gonna try a little slower than the aggressive cuts I was doing last time. Just to, I really want it to be square is what I want. I think everybody, when they're doing this, wants it to be square. So I'm also going to keep these ends so that when I'm getting ready to weld, I have some material exactly like I'll be welding to set the welder up and make sure I'm getting good penetration. So here we go. I'll show you. So I think I am crooked because on the other side, if I square this, so this edge is sitting, sorry, this edge here is sitting against the differential axle tube, and it looks like it is going off center. So I'm going to try to straighten that out. I don't know if the cutter will allow me. If not, I'll just grind that off with a flapper wheel. But you can see, like, I was only a few turns, and I only turned that in maybe 3 times, and look how deep that is already. It's 30 thou already. Alright, I tried my best to figure out if it was square. So we did show you that when I'm done. There's a seized part that probably doesn't help. There she is, she's off. So what I found was there was a big burr here. I'm gonna call it a burr, but it obviously wasn't a burr, but what I think it was this was the original excuse me, the metal dust is making me sneeze here. Anyway, the spring U-bolts originally was right around here, and I think it created a bit of a, I don't know, something anyway, a lip. It was quite large. I don't know if you can see it here. Maybe it's on this side. Maybe you can see it. I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's from the cutter. It was right on the edge. And all I did was just grind that off here. Oh, sorry. All I did was grind that off here. And I put my square on here like this. And my other square, the big square, doesn't seem to want to work in this situation. So I put it on here like this. And then I ran my other square up. So what I'll try to do is grab it. Let me show you. So I just ran this edge on the tube and just see if there's any gap there. So there is a slight one when you get close. Down the bottom there. So I did that at a few points. And I just taken the grinder. It actually did turn out pretty good. And just I had to take off just a little bit more around here, so I'll have to double check my measurements, make sure I'm good, but I still have to bevel prep this for the weld. So really at the end of it, I'm just trying to get as close to square before I start. So then I'll show you what I found on the pipe cutter. So what I found on the pipe cutter was this one support. I don't even know what these are, fingers, probably to help it stay square, was seized. Like you can see, I hammered it back for this case. And this one still sits there. It has a spring in here at the top and it pushes it down. So I'm going to free this up before I cut the other side and see if it helps make a straighter edge. This here was definitely a lot better than the original cut. So if you take your time, set it up correctly, I think the Reed pipe cutter is a very, very viable option. It's cheaper than the cold cut saw, but I think the cold cut saw at the end is probably the right way to do it. As long as, again, it's only as good as your prep. If you level the tube and level the saw and everything, you should have a 90-degree cut. So there we go. So I'll double check my measurements and we'll carry on with the little snippets of video here and there to show you. Okay, so I switched the 8 3/4 around. I freed up that jaw. Just needed some WD-40 and smack it around a bit, get it moving free. I do think it's cutting crooked because it's not supported on that eroded part. So I took my protractor, I put it on the axle tube, and I set it on the machine part of the cutter to get close to a 90-degree separation. Very close, hopefully within a degree or two, and then I'm going to cut it. And also looking at the cut that I'm going to call it a bevel, if you will. The area that was raised that I showed on when the square was on there is created from the pipe cutter, because it's looking at all the cuts that it has done. It creates that on every pipe. So she is. I'll show you guys that burr that comes. So it might be kind of difficult to see, but what you end up with is this little piece of metal kind of pushes up. You can see a curves up here, right there. I'll show it to you with a square. Not very well on that angle. See a gap in there. See the gap? And that's caused because this is raised. So I'm going to buff that off with a grinder, and then I'll do the same squaring bit and I'll check my measurements. Hopefully I'm good. Okay, so I buffed this off, got rid of that bird edge or whatever it is, and I squared it up. And what I found was actually it's not too bad to do that 2 square trick to kind of square it up. So what I was doing was just taking one like this, taking the other square edge like that, and just running it up. And then you butt these two together and you see where you have to take your material off. And I found it worked pretty good. It was actually pretty fast. So then what I did was I took an overall length, so from the cut end to the cut end, and I come up with, we'll go from there. And basically all I'm trying to do is prove I'm square. So when I started, or equal, sorry, not square. So I'm hooked on there. Down here, I'm just a smidgen under 44 inches. So my axle ends are 5 3/8 together, both of them. And then if I come here from this stud, hook onto that stud, I'm right there. I'm 17 7/16 it looks like, and I'm the same on this side. So I know this axle was square when I began because I did the same measurement the same way, just it was 23 and 11/16 before. So this one here is the same thing, 17 and looks like 7/16. So I'm pretty good. So now all I got to do is I got to get those holes augered out in my little fixture jigs. So what I have is some of these. So I have 4 of them. So right now these are set up. These 2 are for the housing that goes in the middle, the pumpkin. I have these open up to 1 inch, but I want to go larger to like 1.25 inches. And then I'll buy a 1.25 inch shaft, 6 feet long. It'll be way too long for this, but just in case, I'll have the length. And then this will straighten it out, and then I'll weld this on. So unfortunately for now, you guys will have to wait to see the ending. There are a few things to note that I will be doing. Is this little brake line holder here. I will be taking it off here with the spot weld cutter, and I'll just move it over a few inches just so it's out of the way, because the U-bolts will be here and they're gonna have, you know, brake line in the way. So that will be what it is. So if you guys like it, comment, please, talk to me. You know, maybe you guys are going through something, maybe I'm screwing something right up. That'd be great to at least have some discussions. Would appreciate some feedback anyway. Okay guys,